As you know, this is Decoding the Father, and this offering, this lesson, this message is livicated and consecrated to my own biological father, TLW, as well as my two grandfathers, John Westbrook and Justice Specs Forehand. Um, Peace to them. I never met my grandfather on my mother's side because he transitioned long before I was even thought of. My mom was a little girl when he transitioned, and my father's father, he transitioned in 1999, I believe. So I had a relationship with my father's father, even though I didn't see him that often. My father's from Tennessee, so my grandfather still lived in Tennessee my entire life, but we used to go and visit every summer. But I did have a relationship with my father's father, so shout out to him, and then shout out to all the other father figures in my life and the father figures universally. So the father figures in my life, all of those uncles, all of those older cousins, and all of those father figures who I'm not related to, those male teachers, those coaches, those deacons and pastors and ministers and brothers in the church when I was growing up, college campuses, work environments, schools, internships, everywhere where there's a father figure, I honor you and I express my gratitude for the guidance, the wisdom that you have imparted on me, and the example that you have imparted on me on what it means to be a divine masculine in balance and what it looks like to be an excellent example of a father. I'm not a father. I'm not a biological father yet myself, but I do have two godchildren. I have a goddaughter and a godson, and I'm a male teacher also in the school system. So I stand in the gap as a father figure in that capacity as well. I say, oh, pour the virtual libations, or I'll take a sip for the virtual libation there. All right, so let's get into it. But before we decode the Father, we have our daily metaphysical mathematics for Saturn's Day and Sunday, since we're closing out Saturday in about an hour and a half. So this Saturday that we're coming to the conclusion of is the 13th day of June. So it's a 13-4 calendar day. 13 is the number of power and dominion, amongst many other meanings of it. And the number 4 is the number of organization, stability, structure, practicality, amongst other meanings. But for the purposes of decoding the energy of this day that we're ending, I want to focus on those meanings. And then when you add up the month, day, and the year, June 13th, 2026, it is a Master 11 Universal Day /2 if you reduce the master number down to a single digit. And master number 11 is the number of spiritual downloads, channels, enlightenment, and compassion. So the message when we put all of that together is to use our spiritual authority responsibly, because remember, we talked about spiritual authority last month in May. Use your spiritual authority responsibly by combining those spiritual downloads and channels that you're receiving with the practicality, the discipline, and the stability. So that's the energy of the day, bringing that enlightenment. We talked about the light and the dark on Unread Book Review earlier this afternoon. So bringing that light to the darkness of ignorance. That's that master number 11 energy. And when I talked about spiritual authority and the responsibility that comes with being granted the spiritual authority, and also the spiritual 411 back in April, you need to use those spiritual tools, those spiritual gifts in a responsible way, and in the practical way in which they can be applied and useful to you and useful to the people that you are encountering and interacting with. Now, tomorrow, Sunday, is the 14th day of the month of June, and 1 + 4 is 5. So we're under the influence of that number 14 as well as that number 5. And the number 14 as the temperance card in tarot numerology and Chaldean numerology is that number of balance and moderation. And 1 + 4 is 5, and 5 is the number of change, adaptability, and on the challenging side, vices and exhaustion. And when we add up the month, day, and the year, tomorrow is a 3 universal day. And the challenges of the 3 are connected to excess, when you overdo your work or overdo your play, overwork or overplay, which can lead to stressed nerves and strained nerves, and exhaustion. So the message for tomorrow that you want to keep in mind, since it is Sunday and you're getting ready to enter in a new week, you're concluding a full week of work, a full week of play, a full week of activity. Tomorrow is all about restoring that balance and that rest, which is already the message for Sundays anyway. In many cultures and perspectives, Sunday is perceived as the day of rest. And the numerics of June 14th doubles down on that message to rest on Sunday and restore balance. So that can be rest from a week of hard work at your job, in your vocation, in your business, or it can be rest and recovery and restoration of balance from a weekend of turning up Friday night or Saturday night. If you're leaving Pronoia Starseed podcast at the conclusion of the show and you're going out tonight, tomorrow you want to restore that energy by resting. So now we'll get into our feature presentation, which is decoding the Father. So we'll start with the meaning of the word Father, and then we'll go into the numerology of Father, and then we'll go into the energy of Father's Day, this year's Father's Day, and then we'll close out with the mathematical, metaphysical summation and conclusion. Yes, a restful surrender Sunday. Yes. So on a very basic level, biological level, a father is just the male parent. Because I know, and I had to go over all of this because we're living in a time where there's a lot of confusion about parents and gestating and non-gestating, individuals and talk about all of that. So we got to get back to the basics, right? We got to go to the basics and say that a father is the male parent. I don't know what gestating or non-gestating is. All I know is that a father is a male parent, a mother is a female parent. You have to be a man to be a father. You have to be a woman to be a mother. That's all I know. But beyond the biology, you also have adoptive fathers, men who are fathers who may not be the biological father, but they're the father on paper, according to the legal paperwork within this realm and matrix of the United States of America. You also have stepfathers, godfathers, like myself. And then you have those men that stand in the gap, like those teachers, those coaches, those community leaders. And then you also have the more figurative and spiritual meanings of father. Father is known as the creator or the originator. For example, you have the father of this and father of that. You have the father of mathematics. You have the father of metaphysics. You have the father of, whatever. You got the father of soul, or the godfather of soul. So you have those more figurative kind of meanings, but they all apply to the father regardless of whether they're literal, figurative, biological. Papa Saturn, Father Saturn. Yep, astrologically, you have these archetypes of the mother and the father. Father also refers to the ancestors. A father is a metaphor for someone who's a protector and a leader. And then you also have your fathers in the religious state too, such as the clergymen, church fathers. Then you have God the Father within the Trinity of traditional Christianity, but I guess you also have it in the Gnostic tradition too, but it's a different type of Trinity going on, but that's a whole other conversation. So that's the literal and figurative and spiritual meaning of father. So let's see what the numbers say about father. And again, when I'm breaking down the meaning of these words numerically, it's here to show you how they align, correlate, compare to these definitions, these literal definitions, these connotated definitions, the denotated definitions. You will notice when we break down the vibration of these words from a numerical perspective, you'll notice that they carry similar meanings, or the meanings are connected. So let's get into the metaphysical mathematics of father. So as you see on this chart, I'm not sure. I probably could have made the font a little bit bigger. I made the chart bigger, but I didn't make the letters and the numbers bigger. So forgive me if that's a little bit difficult to see on the screen there, but I will verbalize what you're looking at as well. So what you see in the top row with the green, that is the Chaldean alphabet. I forgot to put the alphabet in the slides, but maybe next time I'll review the numerical values for Chaldean numerology and the numerical values for the Pythagorean numerology, which is on the bottom row in the blue. So on the top is the green, the Chaldean system of numerology, which is the older, more mystical system of numerology that takes into account the double digit meanings of the numbers. And then on the lower portion, you see the Pythagorean system of numerology, which is the more modern system. And we know it's modern just from the name. Pythagorean comes from Pythagoras, and we know that Pythagoras studied under the Cometians in Kemet, for 22 years. So he learned from them and he remixed it and made his own version. And so now we have Pythagorean numerology. And if you go back to high school, you had the Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. But of course, he's probably not the originator of that. But anyway, you got these two systems here. And you have the word father going through the center. So starting with the Chaldean system, father And also to add on to this, to the definitions, father is the more formal term for the male parent. The more informal terms include dad, pops, papa, but we'll deal with the formal term father, since I dealt with the formal term of mother, instead of mom, ma, and all of those variations. But in the Chaldean system of numerology, father adds up to the number 25. And we'll deal with the double digit compound and Chaldean meaning of the 25, and then we'll talk about the meaning of the number 7 when you add 2 and 5 together to equal 7. And what's interesting is when myself and Mawulisa did my Umi Says, The Wisdom of the Mother, back in May, in person at the Reef House Center in Jersey, I broke down, not only did I break down the word mother, but I also broke down the word wisdom along with the 2 spellings of Umi. And when I broke down the word wisdom numerically, wisdom added up to a 25 as well. And we analyze wisdom as a feminine aspect, since wisdom is the meaning of Sophia in the Gnostic tradition, that divine feminine in the Gnostic tradition. And wisdom is the number 2 in the supreme mathematics, and wisdom is symbolic of the woman. So we identified and displayed how wisdom is feminine with its meaning and with its numerics adding up to 25-7. But with father, this is showing the balance and the duality here of the energy, that even though father is masculine, every one of us has both masculine and feminine energy inside of us, right? So the word father in its numerics further exemplifies that there's a balance between the masculine and the feminine within the father. So one of the meanings of the number 25 is that it keeps one safe on water from drowning, and it makes a good swimmer. Now, we could take this literally and we could take this figuratively. So if we take it literal, obviously, water safety, swimming, being in the pool, being in the beach and all of that, we could talk about safety and protection there. But when we talk about water symbolically and what water represents, we hear things such as water holds memories, right? We also hear that water is emotion. So I'm going to go with the emotions because it takes me to a book that I got back in 2014. So shout out to another one of the gods, Starmel Allah. He writes about the meaning of water in his book, his first edition or his first installment of the Righteous Way series. He writes about water being analogous to the various emotions that we undergo in relationships. So in this chapter, he's talking about interpersonal relationships between men and women, but water being representative of emotions applies outside of romantic relationships, and it applies to the self too, internally, because we have emotions that we go through and experience as individuals, and our emotions aren't necessarily coming as a result of interactions with other people. Sometimes we experience our emotions just sitting in solitude. Excuse me. So water is analogous to the emotions. So what it means to be a father, and when I'm talking about the meaning of father and in the positive aspects, I'm talking about the good fathers. Now, the bad fathers, they'll just be the inverse of all these descriptions, because there's a duality in all the numbers. There's a positive meaning of the numbers, and then there's a negative meaning of the numbers too. But we're going to focus on the positive meanings. And if you want to put it in context of the fathers who are not so good fathers, just think about the opposite of what I'm describing here. So symbolically, keeping one safe, keeping children safe on water from drowning means teaching children to regulate their emotions. And when I say regulate emotions, that means just to have their emotions in balance, because emotions aren't positive or negative. It's how you use those emotions, or what you do with your emotions, that determines the productivity or the negativity. Because we have, there's always been that narrative over the decades and centuries that men are not supposed to be emotional. And if you really want to blow your own mind, father gets to be father by navigating the water and not drowning, sperm to egg. Woo! Man, we need some. Come on, guys. Rael, you need to get that soundboard so we can get some bombs up in here. Man, yes, the sperm swimming. I didn't even think about that one. That's a heat rock right there. That's a bar. Okay, there we go. Gone. That'll work. That'll work. But yes, absolutely. Yeah, my mind is blown too, Lady Saturn. She just blew my mind with that one. But yeah, so it's even before the child comes into the physical realm, the fatherhood begins by navigating and swimming those waters to attach to the egg. Whew. But going back to water as emotions, regulating the emotions doesn't mean suppressing emotions. It doesn't mean being non-emotional. It means feeling your emotions and expressing them in a productive way. So to be a father is to teach that skill and to teach that wisdom. And to be a father is also means working with the mother, whether you're married to the mother, in a relationship with a mother, co-parenting with the mother. And we'll talk about that when I get to the 25 as a compound number. But it's navigating the waters of a relationship. So let me read a little bit of this right here, because now I'm going to talk about the relationship between father and children and father and mother. So we're going to talk about the ship, the SHIP, right? And we're going to extend this water analogy here in this water metaphor. So I'll take it from the top and read this here, because now, remember, like I said, he's talking about men and women relationships, but remember, you can apply this, navigating the emotions, regulating the emotions, to men and women relationships, child and parent relationships, friend to friend relationships, any type of relationship this applies to. So it says, in the lessons, it is stated that this water cannot get above 6 miles from the Earth's surface by the sun and moon. This can be interpreted in the purely scientific way, or we can use this as an analogy to understand the dynamics of relationships between men and women, or, like I said, father and child, mother and father. Water is analogous to the various emotions that we undergo in relationships. Emotions are like water because it has various currents and can be as deep as the ocean. On the surface, someone may appear non emotional about something, but you won't truly know how deep things are until you test the water. It was told to me that Allah discussed this lesson often. If emotions are like water, a relationship is the quote unquote relation. That is the quote unquote ship riding on that water. How that ship sails depends on who is steering. Where and how far that relationship goes depends on who can see the furthest and know where they're going. Strong waves or emotions can capsize the ship or send it off course, which is why we must have our emotions under control when in a relationship. It is nobody else's responsibility but ours, men and women, to keep our emotions or water calm. I know this sounds crazy to some of you. How can a person keep calm when this, whatever you use the name call, doesn't understand me or doesn't love me like I love him or her? I also have been on the emotional roller coaster rides we all been in on our relationships. Sometimes that ride can be fun and filled with happiness, and sometimes that ride will make you sick, in this case, seasick. What I've learned here is that understanding between the sun, which is man, and moon, which is the woman, helps us to explore what and why we feel what we are feeling. Did the other person make us feel a certain way, or are our feelings an inner reaction to what someone said or didn't say or did or didn't do? So I'll stop reading that right there. And like I said, you can apply this to father and son, father and daughter, mother and father. So that number 25, like I said, the father adding up to 25, that number 25 keeps one safe on water from drowning. Now, also the number 25 is the mystical guru with a strong intuition and psychic ability. Now, we often talk about in the number 7, when you add the 2 and 5 together, 7 is an intuitive number. But I was mistaken when I when I broke down the number 7 with the wisdom of the mother. In that lesson, I said that number 7 was a feminine number. Number 7 is actually a masculine number. And you can see it in the flow line of the number 7. It's all straight lines. All right. Or if you can see it on the screen, that 7 is all straight lines. That's masculine energy. But it's still connected to the element of water, which is a feminine element. And that further reinforces this notion that the father has a balance between his divine masculine and his feminine energy. So while women are known to be more intuitive, men are also intuitive, and the father is also intuitive. As a matter of fact, I said last month that while all women are intuitive, it seems like the mother, once a woman becomes a mother, her intuition is multiplied. So she becomes even more intuitive. And you can say the same thing about the father. Once a man becomes a father, a man is already intuitive, but once he becomes a father, he becomes even more intuitive. So this is to say that the father is a man who is intuitive. So going to we'll talk about we'll continue with the Chaldean meaning of the 25, then we'll go to the compound meaning. So also the number 25 suffers tests and conflicts in youth, and then they gain strength through observation and eventually overcoming the obstacles and in the end, they're rewarded with good fortune in their later years. The snake, the water moccasin, nurturing and intuitive, just like that number 7 energy. And you mentioned the word nurturing. We had that series on the healing chambers talking about the word nurture and nurturing. And we discuss how oftentimes the world is led to believe that only the mother nurtures. But when we broke down the meaning of the word nurture and the numerical vibration of the word nurture, it revealed that nurture is gender neutral. Both men and women nurture, father and mother nurtures. So thank you for that reminder, Mawu, with that water moccasin. That snake. Be as wise as serpents. I'm going ahead and connecting Pranoia to unread, talking about that Gnosticism, but that's another conversation. Being wise as serpents and the Christ being the serpent and all that. But we getting off track. but the but the Father is one who goes through those tests and trials, because the cliche goes that there is no manual for being a parent, for being a mother, or being a father. Yes, people have written books and there's classes and all of that, but it's an art to being a parent, and you learn more, or you learn a lot through experience. And that's what this number 25 is telling us here. So early on, as you're first becoming the parent and learning to be a parent or father, you're going to go through some tests, and you're going to go through some conflicts, and you're going to go through some challenges early on as a new father. But as you perfect your practice of being a father, and you work to being the best father you can be, and you observe and you learn through experience, you become stronger as a father, and you overcome those obstacles. So those obstacles and those challenges that you faced as an early or young father, once they reappear again, you like, oh yeah, I got that. I can handle that. And then when you stay the course of being a good father who's in balance and who's productive, you're rewarded with good fortune in later years. And that can look like your children, whether they're biological children or not biological children, those children that you care for, that were in your care when they were young children and young adults, when they become adults and you become an elder, they take care of you and they protect you. It's that whole metaphor of the babies and the elders. how once people get into their elder age, they become babies again, so they need to be taken care of. Who's going to take care of them? Well, if you're a productive father who was not estranged, who was not abusive, who was not neglectful, your children will take care of you when you become an elder. But if you're neglectful, or if you were abusive, or if you were hurtful, negative, them children ain't going to have nothing to do with you when you become an elder. They probably stick you in the nursing home and never come to visit you. That is not good fortune in your later years. So when we go to the compound meaning of the 25, looking at the 2 and 5 individually and how they work together behind the scenes with the 7 in the forefront, 25 is the number of the wise, intuitive, versatile and adaptive partner. And that is the partner to the mother. The father is the partner to the mother. And like I said, that's regardless if the mother and father are married, if they're in a relationship, or if they're not together, but they're co-parenting. The father is supposed to, or a good father serves as a wise, intuitive, versatile, and adaptive partner to that mother. That's the compound meaning of the 25. And then that 7 again, that's the wisdom and the intuition. That's where the wisdom and intuition comes from. But the number 2, as being the other moon and water number, that the number 2 represents intuition on the feminine side, while the 7 represents the intuition on the masculine side. And then when we go to the Pythagorean system, that bottom row, that blue row, father adds up to the number 31 as a compound number, and the number 4 as the root number or the single digit number. And as a compound number, the number 31 is the creative and ambitious leader. The number 3 being the numbers of creativity and ambition. The number 1 being the number of the leader, the pioneer, the originator, the innovator. So in many contexts, depending on your cultural context, many people subscribe to the man or the father being the head of the household, the leader of the family. So we see that in the vibration of the word father from the Pythagorean perspective in the number 31. But even if there's so the father can be the head with the wife or the mother underneath, and then the children, or from that perspective, or the mother and the father can be co-leaders. So in both instances, the father is the leader, or both the father and the mother are the leader. But I would go even further and say servant leadership. So a father is a servant leader, not just a leader that delegates and dictates everything, but the father is right there, boots on the ground level, working with the mother, working with the children, and leading them from a position of servanthood. So this isn't to say which way is better. That's up to the individual family to decide which way is the best for them. I stay out of those debates about gender roles and gender wars and going 50-50 and all of that dumb shit. I stay away from all of that. Y'all can have that. Y'all can have them conversations and those debates. I'm just breaking down what the numbers say. And then when you add that 3 and 1 together to get 4, the number 4 is that number of stability, discipline, hard work, structure, foundation, and that is the role of the father. The father is there to provide that stability, to teach discipline, to teach hard work, and to provide structure for the children and for the family. So that is the numerics of the word father. And now we'll go into the energy of Father's Day. Now, I know this is Pranoia University, so I know in the audience, we might have some super conscious folk that don't celebrate no holidays or don't observe no holidays, or, they might say the holidays is made up or whatever the case may be. But we know and understand that the masses of people will be observing Father's Day in this realm, in this matrix. I didn't go into the history of Father's Day to see who invented it, when it was created and all of that, but I'll just talk about the vibratory frequency of Father's Day of this year, because Father's Day is always on the third Sunday of June, so that can fall on a different day each year. This year happens to fall on June 21st. And the 21st day of the month, the number 21 in Chaldean numerology, the number 21 is the hero's journey, victory after a struggle, meaning you got to go through some things first, and then in the end, you come out victorious. And isn't that the journey of a father? A father is going to go through some challenges and some struggles. But like I said, with that number 25 in the vibration and the expression of the word father, as long as you stay the course, put your best foot forward, you will be victorious after the struggle. And then when you add 2 and 1 together to get 3, 3 again is that number of creativity, ambition, but it's also the number of growth, expansion, and self-improvement. And when we add it all together, June 21st, 2026, it adds up to the number 10. It's a 10 universal day, 1 universal day. And in Chaldean numerology and tarot numerology, 10 is the wheel of fortune. And when we reduce it down to the single digit of 1, it's the originator, creator, it's the seed planter. So if you remember from my previous builds on the numerical cycles, the 1 through 9 numerical cycle, the number 1 is the seed planting phase. That's when the seeds are planted, and by the time you get to the number 9, the seed has grown, it's flowered, and it's manifested into its full realized manifestation. So the father is a seed planter. A father plants the seed. At conception, the father plants the seed inside the woman. But once the children is here, the father continues to plant seeds in the children, planting those seeds of wisdom, planting those lessons, those seeds of those lessons, continue to nurture and cultivate the children so they grow into being productive adults. Remember, the goal is always for the next generation to improve upon and be better than the previous generation. But to put it all together for Father's Day, because Father's Day is a day of honoring, it's a day of celebration. So this Father's Day, in a week from now, it's a celebration for the dads who overcame the challenges of fatherhood, and they not only went through those challenges or went over those challenges, but they grew through those challenges. Fatherhood, motherhood, parenthood, it should change you. If you're doing it right, you should grow and become a better person as a result. I've seen it firsthand, just watching my friends who became parents. I'm like, man, y'all not the same as y'all were, years ago when I first met y'all. So you're supposed to become a better person. You're supposed to learn from this experience. Your children become your best teachers. So this is a celebration of you fathers overcoming the challenges and not only getting through the challenges, but growing through those challenges and growing through those struggles. And it's a celebration also for the children. A celebration for the children that had those great dads and those great father figures. And it's also an acknowledgement of the children who may have difficult or challenging relationships or strange relationships with their fathers, but they didn't allow those estranged relationships to hold them back or victimize them. And they didn't allow those relationships to continue the downward spiral or cycle when they became parents. Shout out to those new parents that said, or even if they're not parents yet, they already made the intention and decided that I'm not going to do what my father did. I'm going to be better than my father. And I'm not going to continue the cycle. I'm going to break the negative cycle. So this year's Father's Day 2026, is a celebration of those things. It's a celebration of those fathers who overcame those challenges in their journey of fatherhood and became victorious in their fatherhood, and they grew and improved themselves as a result of their fatherhood. And it's an acknowledgement and love to those new fathers and those children who are, and those young men who are aspiring fathers who want to break the cycle of destruction and negativity. So now we go to our Decoding the Father summation, summary, and closeout. So to summarize the decoding of the Father and the meaning of the Father from a literal, figurative, spiritual, and metaphysical, numerological meaning and perspective, the Father is not only a biological parent, but the Father is a man who serves as a father figure. And it's a man who is versatile, ambitious, disciplined, stable, intuitive, wise, and adaptable, a creator, a protector, servant leader, and partner. And you saw all of that from the connotative and denotative meaning of the word Father. You saw it in the figurative meaning of the word Father. And you saw it in the numerical vibration of the word Father, in the expression number, which is the sum total of all the letters in the word Father. Maybe one of these shows I'll go into the vowels and the consonants and show you what that means and how it relates to the expression number and the different parts of a word or name. But I just decided to focus on the expression number this evening. But all of those meanings of Father are encapsulated in all of those perspectives. So much love and gratitude to all of the healthy, productive, and balanced divine masculine fathers out there, whether I know them personally or not. I salute you. Shout out to the Starseed fathers, especially. I think that might just be knowledge born of law. So, peace to knowledge born, our Starseed father, and salutes to y'all. Gratitude to you all. Thank you for being the example for me. As I go on this journey of being a godfather, being a community father, standing in the gap, and potentially becoming a biological father in the future. You know what? Thank you for reminding me with my June message that I forgot to mention about the 25/7, that the father is also, when it comes to navigating those waters, it's not only regulating the emotions, but it's having the balance between the intuition and the analytical mind, because the father can tend to be very analytical, problem solver all the time, but he needs to balance it out with some of that intuition too. So thank you for playing that June message to remind me that I left that out of the 25 break, the number 25/7 breakdown of that. So yeah, Father is also that too. The Father is that balance between that analytical mind and that intuitive spiritual self.
Yes. I love it. I was not expecting all the numbers. The numbers always just resonate with the vibration of the name.